Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Alan Madden, and I'm a lecturer in History of Art here at the University of Glasgow. And I, along with my colleagues, Amy and Ben, who you can see on screen, are delighted to welcome everyone to this special Q&A session relating to our new Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters Programme, Managing Art and Cultural Heritage in Global Markets, or MAGMA for short, which is offered jointly by the University of Glasgow, the University of Lisbon and University Institute of Lisbon, Erasmus University Rotterdam, and IESA Arts and Culture Paris. Now, if you're joining us in this session, then it is very likely that you will have either already submitted an application for a scholarship for the MAGMA programme, or you will have at least expressed an interest in applying. And so hopefully this session will give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have about the nature of the programme, about its content or delivery, maybe something to do with the structure of the programme, its mobility periods, or other practicalities such as visas, travel, and accommodation. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions about those. Now, just to give you a little bit of an insight into how this session is going to be structured today, I will say a couple of words, just kind of introducing the programme a little bit more. I'm sure you're all very familiar with it, but I'll say a few words about the programme. Then I'll hand over to my colleague, Amy Bell, to introduce herself and to talk a little bit about her role at the university and specifically her role in relation to the MAGMA programme. And then similarly, we'll hand over to Ben to do the same. Then we'll each take in turn a few kind of sample questions or frequently asked questions. So these are questions about the programme that we've already received so far in this application round. And also questions that we know from our experience of last year's application round the applicants might have at this stage in the process. So we'll each then come back and cover maybe one or two of those frequently asked questions. And at that point, we will hand over to you and we will start answering the questions that you will be able to post in the chat. So please do, I'm sure some of you have started already, please do post your questions in the chat. I will say we also have some colleagues backstage, you can't see them, but they will also be endeavouring to answer your questions in the chat box as well. So if your question isn't answered by one of us on screen, hopefully it will be answered by someone in the chat. And I'll mention this again towards the end of the session, but if there are any more specific questions relating to your own kind of personal circumstances around applying, please feel free to email us at the MAGMA email inbox, which is magma, M-A-G-M-A, at glasgow.ac.uk. But so again, as I said, I think a lot of you who are joining us in this session will have already done a little bit of research. You'll have already done your homework. You may have already submitted an application. So you will probably know a little bit already about the nature of the MAGMA programme. But in short, in terms of the purpose of the programme and its aims, MAGMA is designed to examine critically the drivers and mechanisms that govern the circulation and management of art and cultural heritage. And we might come on to talk about this a little bit later as well. But again, in short, by cultural heritage, that includes both site-specific, movable, tangible, or intangible cultural heritage as well. And we'll be looking at this from an international, a historic, economic, and contemporary perspective, drawing on multidisciplinary consortium expertise, ranging from the history of collecting and art market studies to cultural heritage, economics, and management. MAGMA aims to better equip the art and cultural heritage professional with all the skills necessary to work in this highly complex, volatile, and growing field worldwide. So that's a little bit about the nature of the programme. I'll come on again shortly to talk a wee bit more about the program structure and maybe some of the things that you might expect to study while on the program. But first, what I'll do is I'll hand over, first of all, to Amy and then to Ben, just to introduce themselves and to say a wee bit about their role on the MAGMA program as well. Okay, over to you, Amy.
All right, thank you very much, Alan. Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Amy Bell. I am the International Development Manager at the College of Arts and Humanities here at Glasgow. And part of my role involves providing administrative support to our Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters programmes. So I'm here today to help with your questions related to the MAGMA Erasmus Mundus Scholarships and the programme more generally. And I'll pass over to Ben to give a quick introduction now.
Thanks, Amy. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're reaching us from. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ben Belshaw. I'm the postgraduate admissions officer overseeing MAGMA and the other Erasmus Mundus programs that are offered at the University of Glasgow. So my role today is hopefully to answer some of your questions regarding the application process itself, entry requirements, if you have any questions about visas or deposits as well. So yeah, looking forward to speaking to a few of you today.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Amy, and thank you, Ben. Now, I can see that we have already started to have questions come through, so we will come to those in a moment. But as I said at the start, it might be useful. Some of you may have a lot of similar kinds of questions, or it may be that you have questions that I'm sure applicants applying last year will have had as well. And so myself and Amy and Ben might run through just, again, a few more of the kind of the basics, the key things to know at this stage in the application process. So something that we are asked quite a lot, because this is a very very special kind of program. It's an Erasmus Mundus program. It's across 2 years. We're working with international partners. Some students, applicants, will be getting in touch with us to say, what can I expect from the MAGMA program? What kind of things might we study? What is the structure of the program? What is the nature of these mobility periods, as we refer to them? So I'll say a little bit more about that up front, and then of course I'm happy to answer more specific questions later as well. But managing art and cultural heritage in global markets is a partnership between the University of Glasgow and our partner higher education institutions in Lisbon, Paris, and in Rotterdam. So if you are successful, and hopefully everyone joining us today will be successful in their applications, and you join us on the program in September of 2024, then you will be joining us for 24 months for a 2-year program across at least 3, but likely 4 mobility periods. So if you're unfamiliar with that term mobility period, you might just think of it as a 2-year master's program across 4 semesters. So semester 1 will begin in September of 2024 and will launch in Lisbon with our partners, the University of Lisbon and University Institute of Lisbon. Now, while there, you will be able to study a range of core and optional courses. Now, I should say these optional courses may change year on year as we're adding new courses into the program, or maybe developing and changing some courses. But you can certainly expect courses within the fields of arts management and art market studies as well. So that will be semester 1 in Lisbon. In semester 2, which will begin in January of 2025, you will then make your way to Paris, to our partner IESA Arts and Culture. And there you'll have, again, a range of core and optional courses under different study tracks, whether that's courses relating to collecting and the art market, or managing the cultural heritage of the future. After your period of time in Paris, you will then make your way to the 3rd mobility. I'll say a little bit more about what you can do in the summer in a second. But the 3rd mobility will then begin in September of 2025, and that will be in Rotterdam with our partner Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And there, again, you will study a range of courses that relate to economics of cultural heritage and economics of cultural tourism. So that's what you will get on the ground in person from our partner universities. But at the same time, you will also receive online learning from myself and my colleagues here at the University of Glasgow around specific core courses designed to, again, prepare you and give you all the skills that you need for the program. My own course, just to begin advertising it already, is Cultures of Collecting Cultures, which looks at histories of collecting practices. And there are other courses such as Interdisciplinary Research Methods and Approaches and Provenance and Restitution. So that gives you a little bit of an inkling, a little bit of an insight into the kind of courses that you will study here. And I should say all of this information can be found on the MAGMA webpage as well. So please do read that in detail before applying to get a sense of the overall structure and nature of the course. Now, in between these mobility periods, in the summer of 2024, in July 2024 specifically, you will also have the opportunity to take part in seasonal schools. So we have 2 seasonal schools which will be running here at the University of Glasgow in summer. And those will be managed between the university in partnership with our key associate partners. For the summer schools this year, we are in partnership with the Hunterian Museum and Art Gallery, as well as the Smithsonian Institution, specifically the Smithsonian Cultural Rescue Initiative. And we also have another seasonal school, a winter school, which will run in January of 2025, and that is with our partner, the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. So there is a packed program across the mobility periods, across these optional seasonal schools, which are non-credit bearing, but will nevertheless give you the opportunity to delve a little more deeply into the kind of issues that we're going to be discussing in the classrooms. So you'll have all of these things in the formal program. And informally, while you're in each of the mobility locations, you'll have the opportunity to go on a whole range of visits and special trips to museums, art galleries, cultural heritage institutions in each mobility location. So when we were fortunate enough to be at the induction of this year's program in Lisbon, we visited the Cultural Centre in Belém, and we also visited the San Jerónimos Monastery. And the students who are just leaving Lisbon now to make their way to Paris have enjoyed a really wide range of visits during class time and also in their own time as well, volunteering their own time, just to really soak up and get the best out of the fact that they are in these fantastic European cities. So I have lots more to say on all of these topics, and I'd be really happy to come back and talk in a little bit more depth about any of these or anything about the application process. But maybe if I can hand over first to Amy, and then again we can come to Ben just to talk through maybe some more of this practicalities, maybe some of the specifics about that application process. Would you be happy to talk a little bit about that, Amy?
Absolutely. Thank you, Alan. So as Alan mentioned, this is a very special program, a very exciting program. MAGMA is co-funded by the European Union through the Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters Programme, and this allows us to award several scholarships over the next 3 years. So I imagine a lot of you on this call today are interested in applying for a scholarship for September 24 entry to the programme. So applications are open. They've been open since October and they will close on January 19th. So there's not a lot of time left to get your application in. All required documents have to be submitted before the 19th. So that includes English language test results, if that's applicable to you. They have to be submitted before the 19th in order to be considered for the scholarship. We expect to receive around 500 to 600 applications, and we're able to allocate about up to 22 scholarships for this coming year. We've had quite a lot of questions come in so far, especially to the MAGMA inbox, and I can quickly cover a few of them. We had a lot of questions asking, what does the scholarship cover? What is actually covered in the amount that you'll receive? Tuition fee is covered, so if you receive the Erasmus Mundus scholarship amount, you wouldn't pay any tuition fees. You'd receive full travel insurance coverage for the duration of the 2-year programme. You would also, on top of that, receive a monthly stipend to help with things like your rent, accommodation, things like that, visa processing fees, travel around the city that you might be studying in. So it's a very generous scholarship, and it's obviously it's quite a competitive process each year to find 22 out of the hundreds that apply. We have been asked quite a lot about the timeline for the scholarship selection. So we aim to, the deadline is the 19th of January, but we aim to send results out by middle to late March. So you will receive a notification if your application has been successful or unsuccessful by the end of March through the MAGMA email address. So keep an eye on your inbox towards then. We have been asked also what makes me eligible for the scholarship. I would encourage you to look through our website in detail. So we have very detailed instructions of what how to apply, what documents are required, and also a summary of the kind of background of subject areas that are acceptable for the programme. If you're unsure about anything at all on the website, if anything's not clear, please do contact us via the MAGMA inbox, and we will be more than happy to answer your questions. To be eligible for a scholarship, you basically have to have received an offer to join the programme, be that conditional or unconditional. So anyone who's applied before the 19th of January and you've received an unconditional or a conditional offer to the programme, you will automatically be considered for a scholarship. Let me just have a quick look at another question. Ben, this might be a question for you, if you wouldn't mind. Is the scholarship application process separate to the programme application process, i.e., do they submit at the same time? Do they have separate deadlines? Yeah, if you wouldn't mind speaking to that, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. So prior to the 19th of January deadline, your application will be considered for the scholarship program, provided that you can submit all the required documents on the checklist that we require for review. Essentially, you will receive an offer to join the program before you learn the outcome of the scholarship process. So we aim to get offers out to student applicants within about 28 days from your point of application. So many of you will have received conditional or unconditional offers at this point. And again, to clarify, that is an offer to join the program separate from the scholarship process. So that neatly dovetails into a second question that we tend to get a lot, which is what happens if you've been accepted onto the program and not awarded a scholarship, and whether you can self-fund. If you are holding an offer for the program, we're happy to bring you on as a self-funding student if you wish to attend. And you, as an early applicant during the scholarship deadline process, will be one of the first people to receive an offer. So again, that offer remains valid if you wish to fund either through sourcing other funding or paying for the program yourselves. Students who do wish to apply for self-funding will be reviewed on a rolling basis following the scholarship deadline. We'll contact those applicants on a case-by-case basis as well.
That's great. Thank you, Ben. Alan, this might be a question for you. We've got a question in the chat related to the required documents for the application. What makes a personal statement stand out from the others?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. It's the question that I would 100% be asking if I were still working on my personal statement right now. So having read a lot of personal statements last year and being very excited about reading a lot of personal statements again this year, I would say the key thing for your personal statement is, remember, you only have a certain word limit. And now I think this is 1,200 words is the absolute maximum word count. But of course, in the application form, it will give you a note of this. So 1,200 words might seem like a lot to you, or it might seem like not very much at all, depending on your kind of writing style. But I would say it is really important that you are as specific as possible. So what makes a personal statement stand out to me isn't anything in particular about someone's background or experience. As you know, Amy, on the program we have students that come from really broad, diverse background in terms of where in the world that they're coming from, and also what their academic background is and what their professional background is. So it's less so about that. It's students who are able to make a clear statement about their interest in, their passion for art or cultural heritage, and are able to back that up by talking about something within their past, their academic experience, their professional experience, something, even if it's a kind of a more personal kind of story that supports that. So yeah, I would say you only have a very short kind of word count to work with to try and cover everything that you're going to want to talk about in your personal statement. So being as precise as possible and being as specific as possible would be what makes a really good personal statement stand out, as far as I'm concerned. But no, thank you so much for that, Amy. And I wonder, yes, you've done well to kind of kick us off there. Should we now just make our way through the questions that folks have been asking in the chat, because I see quite a few have come through now. So perhaps I can maybe kind of start cherry picking some of these, and I can pass some over to you guys as well to come in on. So let me see here. Neo has asked the question. My question is that I explained in my application about my research topic, which deals more with an African part of art management. I just want to know if it is a deal breaker. And I see there's actually a second question from Neo, which is about if I was offered admission, will I still have to go through an interview for screening? So first part of that, first question, absolutely not. It is absolutely not a deal breaker that you have maybe in your application materials specifically focused in on, or kind of specifically addressed an interest in arts management within an African context. In fact, that is very, very welcome. And if that is what you're interested in, if that is where your passion lies, please do include information like that for anyone who's kind of joining us, who is still working on their application, or who is thinking about starting an application even. If you're concerned about the fact that maybe your experience, your background, your interest in terms of art or cultural heritage is too niche, whether it's focusing on kind of arts management within an African context, or in South America, or elsewhere in the world, please don't worry about that. We're delighted to hear about what drives you, what motivates you and interests you in the program. Because I have to say, personally, when I'm reading these applications, I get just as excited thinking about what each of the successful applicants can bring to us. What the experience that you're going to bring, the knowledge that you're going to bring from wherever in the world that you are, from whatever your academic or professional background is, what you bring to the program really excites me, probably, hopefully, as much as you're excited about what you're all going to get from us when you join the program. So absolutely not a deal breaker. And the question here about having to go through an interview screening, I think we do have this on our webpage, that it's possible that an interview will be a part of the scholarship application process, but that's not always the case. And am I right then, Ben, Amy, in saying that if a student has received an unconditional offer and they have received notice that they have been lucky and successful and have been awarded a scholarship, it's very unlikely after that point that they will also then be asked to come in and do an interview. An interview would be done perhaps at a stage where there's a conditional offer, and there's maybe some more information required, but not after that. Is that correct?
Yep, it would be before the scholarships are allocated. It might be an application where we just feel like we want to learn a little bit more about a certain area, or something that's maybe a little bit unclear, and we might ask an applicant to interview. But it's certainly not a standard part of the application process. And just to add on from what you said earlier, Alan, something to point out is MAGMA, or for current cohort of MAGMA, it's a very diverse group. We've got students who have maybe been in the been working for a number of years and studying, and have a lot of industry experience. We have students who are fresh out of their bachelors, and are keen to get right stuck into an international master program. So it really varies in terms of your research interests. You'll find that your classmates will have all different backgrounds, all different interests, and somehow that comes together really nicely and makes up a really interesting classroom experience. Our current cohort, the first intake, makes up 19 different, or represents 19 different nationalities, which is amazing. So you can learn a lot from your peers, learn a lot from your lecturers and the staff that are working on MAGMA, but I think you'll find it a really nice mix, and a nice mix of experience that will shape your MAGMA experience.
Yeah, that's great. No, thank you, Amy. Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's kind of student cohort drawn from 19 different nationalities. It makes for an even more kind of interesting and engaging experience for everyone, students and staff alike. Okay, well, thank you very much for those questions. Neil, we've got a question from Victor, and apologies, Victor, if I've maybe slightly misunderstood the question. Please feel free to kind of post again in the chat to correct me if so. But your question is, does the study on the programme include any practicals as relating to cultural heritage? If yes, what kind of practicals should be expected? So I'm not sure if you're meaning if this is more of a kind of a practice-based program, a kind of fine arts program, which it is not. But there is a lot of experience of working with professionals who are at the forefront of kind of current issues and debates around cultural heritage. So one example would be you will get the opportunity at the seasonal school with the Smithsonian. Again, I mentioned this specifically with the Smithsonian Cultural Rescue Initiative, to not just learn the theory, but also to engage in some practical exercises as well around what cultural property protection looks like, what cultural heritage management looks like in times of crisis. So certainly there is a good mix of kind of theory-based, but also some kind of hands-on and practical experience as part of that as well. Okay, so apologies, Amy and Ben, if I'm kind of hogging this. I hope you don't mind. If I just carry on, maybe picking out some more questions, and we can kind of see how we get on with these. We've got a question here from Duong. Good day, sir, ma'am. I hope you're having a great day. Can you portray a perfect candidate with business major that you want to see in the applicants of MAGMA? And can I bring my wife with me? Yeah, so well, again, the first part of that question, I have to maybe frustrate you slightly by saying no. I can't paint a portrait, I'm afraid, of what a perfect candidate would look like, because again, hopefully, as you've heard from myself and Amy and Ben, there really is no one kind of perfect fit for the MAGMA program. We have students that are drawn from a really broad range of backgrounds. You mentioned here that you've got a business major. That's fantastic. We absolutely welcome students who've got a background and experience in terms of business, whether that's purely academic experience or whether that's I know that we have students on the program currently who have experience of running their own businesses as well in kind of the arts field. What I would say, I guess, is that if you can demonstrate why MAGMA is right for you, why is MAGMA a good fit for you specifically with your business background, you presumably will have a keen interest in some aspect of the arts, the art markets, or cultural heritage management, or kind of relationships between business and arts and cultural heritage. So just make sure you demonstrate that. Talk a little bit about what your passions are in these areas, and if possible, give us a little bit of evidence in there as well. You know, try not to be too general. Try not to say, I've always been interested in art and cultural heritage. Demonstrate that a little bit. Talk maybe about things that you've been involved in, either on a professional level, on an academic level, even things like volunteering or regular visits, projects that you've been involved in at any time of your life. Just something that can tell us that, as well as your kind of solid business experience and your business background, that you have these other interests that make the MAGMA program specifically a good fit for you. And can you bring your wife? Yes, as well as obviously being a choice for your wife, I would say that, yeah, the University of Glasgow is very welcoming to international students who want to bring their spouses, want to bring their families. I know that there is from the Glasgow side, the International Family Network, which can provide students with information and access to support about settling into life in Glasgow. Now, in terms of our partner universities in Lisbon, Paris, and Rotterdam, just as you can find and access information about that kind of family support and spouse support at Glasgow, look into that on their web pages. Do a little bit of research on what local support will be offered there as well. But do remember that when you're on the MAGMA program, for the full 2 years, as well as registering at our partner institutions, you will be a registered student at the University of Glasgow for that full 2 years. Even if you might not necessarily come to Glasgow itself, you will still be a Glasgow student, and you can still access support from the university as well. Okay, so thank you very much for that question. Next one down here. What is the prospect for further education in PhD programs? The program, I should say, launched in September of 2023. So we're not quite there yet in terms of our students transitioning from this kind of joint master's program into doctoral study. But what I will say is that you will have 2 years of working very closely with a range of world-leading experts across the different partner institutions in their fields. You'll have an opportunity to develop a master's dissertation working in partnership with one of those supervisors at the different partner institutions. So you will have 2 years in which you can think about and develop plans for and proposals for further doctoral study. And that's definitely something that myself and my colleagues here at Glasgow and my colleagues at the partner institutions would be really keen to talk to you about even from the very early stages of your studies on the programme. Okay, is there anything that I've covered so far, Amy or Ben, that you would like to kind of come in on, or say anything more on, anything that I haven't covered?
I'm just looking through the questions at the moment, Alan. It seems like there's a few more questions more related to the application and admissions process and the type of documents that are required. So Ben, I wonder if you perhaps could address this one that's come in from Brooke. I have 2 application questions. One is proof of residency required as part of the application. Is there a way, number 2, is there a way to verify that confidential recommendations were received? So yeah, the references are perhaps that's linked to the reference inbox that we've got at Glasgow.
Yeah, absolutely. With regards to the first question, informally, we don't require proof of residence as a condition of receiving an offer. Where that would come into play is if you want to appeal your fee status. We assess your fee status based on your nationality as you express it to us, your address of permanent residence that you've marked down, and of course, to some extent where you've done your education. So that's the only sense in which proof of residency comes into play. We can provide a checklist of documents that we would accept for a query about your fee status at any point if you need that. With regards to your recommendations, the Erasmus references inbox is always open to receive private references. We'll accept them provided they are sent in by an institutional email address. So it's got to be a professional email as opposed to Yahoo, Gmail, kind of a personal account. And we do try to connect those with the applications that they are sent for as quickly as possible. It's possible if it hasn't been marked down as being received on your checklist, it's either a question of we may have just received it, we haven't had a chance to have a look at it, or perhaps it was formatted incorrectly and we need an amendment made to it, in which case we'll get in touch with you about that as quickly as we can.
That's great. Thank you, Ben. Another question perhaps for you, Ben. Where is it? Here we are. I have applied and I've gotten the admission, and I am from an English-speaking country. Of course, is Nigeria exempt from the English provision? So could you maybe talk, Ben, about the English language requirement and which applicants may be exempt from taking that or providing that English language result?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's not a lot of exemptions on English language, but we do accept different types of proof to confirm that. So a person from Nigeria, for example, if you've completed your degree within the last 6.5 years, prior to the year that you would begin your study, we can accept a West African Examination Council certificate from your last year of high school, showing a grade in English language of C6 or higher. And we would also need a scratch card to verify and validate your results. So the same applies to Ghana as well. We'll accept that qualification from Ghanaian applicants. So in terms of other countries, the majority English-speaking status, there are a handful of countries that we can accept either a full degree earned in a majority English-speaking country as proof of English language. There are certain countries that we will accept a passport for a citizen of that country. And generally speaking, otherwise, the reason we ask for a language test is because, as I'm sure you can imagine, there are a lot of different English language teaching structures out there, and not all of them are made equal, unfortunately. So the testing provides us with a really objective way to assess your ability to meet the curriculum requirements of the program. And it also helps us fulfill UKVI's requirement in terms of entry to the United Kingdom. So for that reason, we don't have a lot of flexibility often in terms of what we can and can't accept for that. But those are basically the functions that we're looking for it to serve, is show us that you can meet that particular academic component of the program, and again, meet the immigration requirement.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben. That's really helpful. Peter has asked, how long does it take for a conditional offer to change to an unconditional offer? And the conditional offer will change to an unconditional offer once you have provided all of the outstanding required documentation. But Ben, is there a specific deadline that applicants should be aware of, or would this be communicated via the offer letter individually to the student?
So from our end, yeah, we're really just looking to make sure that you have all the documents provided as listed in the checklist. Amy's just touched on that. If your offer has not been updated to an unconditional offer, again, it's probable that we have a change that needs to be made with something you've submitted, or perhaps there's, again, we may need a different document in substitution of something that you've provided. So I always recommend just to check in through our applicant self-service portal and take a look at what's listed on your application. But typically we try to turn those around fairly quickly in terms of documents being submitted to open applications or open offers. So it's my goal typically those are turned around in a couple of weeks. And so again, if you just continue to monitor your application through the self-service portal, you should see updates as they come in.
Great, thank you, Ben. Yeah. And we had a question asking how big our cohort is each year, which is hard to tell because we've only got one cohort so far. But I can tell you that our first cohort is 30 students. So we have 22 scholarship funded students this year, and we aim to allocate, as I said earlier, up to 22 scholarships again for this coming academic year. And we can accept up to 40 students in total.
Yeah, I saw there was another question that came in specifically about this is from Ngoka that says, my degree was completed in 2019. I have the West African certificate exam with C5 in English. Where do I send the details to? Because English tests in Nigeria are quite a lot. So Ben, would the student then just include that certification along with their other kind of academic transcripts and things like that as part of their initial application? And if they haven't done so, they would be able to follow up with admissions on any outstanding documents like that kind of language requirement.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, Alan. Absolutely. So in the event that you've already applied and you didn't include that certificate with your original package, you can log into your application self-service, as I mentioned before, and upload any documents that are outstanding or anything else that you feel might be beneficial to your application. So if you can provide specific to that inquiry, if you can provide your official West African Examination Council certificate and a scratch card so that we can verify your results, that would be fantastic, and we can do that quickly for you.
Great, thank you. There's a question that's come in from Mirbano. I have a question related to visa assistance. If I get selected for the scholarship program, will I get any assistance in visa process, as it's not easy to get a visa from where I will be applying? So I can maybe say a little bit about that, and Amy, you can maybe kind of come in. It is the responsibility of each of our students, each of the applicants, to research and to manage the visa application processes across each of the different mobilities, and also for any of the optional seasonal schools that you might wish to take part in as well. But we do have information on the MAGMA University of Glasgow webpage, which gives a kind of brief overview of what is needed, kind of what's required, or at least what you should be aware of in terms of making a visa application. We also do have staff, I know, in Lisbon and in Paris and in our other kind of partner institutions, that can be something of a point of contact, or who can give kind of general advice on visas. But as I'm sure you'll appreciate, because visas are so specific to individuals, where they're coming from, where they're seeking to go to, it's difficult to offer kind of blanket advice that is as specific as you will need it to be. And that's why we ask our students to be aware of the fact that they will need to kind of manage and monitor that process themselves. So is that fair then to say, Amy? Is there anything else that we can comment on? Or
yeah, I would just echo what you said, Alan, that it is down to the student to keep on top of your visa, to make sure that you're researching what's required, to make sure your timeline's planned out. You're constantly, in the Erasmus Mundus programme, you're constantly forward planning for the next semester and thinking about your next move. But having said that, you're not on your own here. We the MAGMA team are here to support you as best we can. But as Alan said, we aren't visa experts, and because you're rotating around several different countries with several different rules, the partner institutions are actually better placed to provide you more detailed guidance and advice when it comes to visas. So if you are successful and you're joining us in September, your first stop will be Portugal, will be Lisbon. And during the summer, we will host a visa webinar online where you'll all get together, and we will be joined by colleagues from ISUTE and the University of Lisbon. And we will talk you through what is required for the visa for your first semester. And this will be well in advance, so that you've got plenty of time to get the ball rolling with your first visa. But it is the student's responsibility to keep on top of it and to obviously make the application, but we are here to support you. And if there's anything you're unsure about, do contact the MAGMA inbox. And if we don't know the answer, we will certainly signpost you to someone who does.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Amy. We've got an important question here from Jay about, I just want to ask, will there be disadvantages for people with disabilities applying for the programme? Will there be support? Amy, is that something that you'd be able to speak to in terms of support for students with disabilities?
Yes, certainly. So MAGMA received funding for students to support students with individual needs. So we have this pot of funding that students can apply for if they feel that they fit the criteria. And I would really encourage you to look at the website and look through that section and apply for it, or contact us and we can set up a meeting to talk about it. But it's there to be used, and we certainly want to make sure that students who would benefit from that funding are getting access to it. But please do look at our website, and it's under the How to Apply page, and there's a lot more details there. But as I said, please get in touch, and for that funding, we're more than happy to set up a one-to-one meeting to talk you through it, and to provide a little bit more information.
That's great. Thank you, Amy. There's a couple of questions that I think I can answer instead of passing the buck. So there's a question here, quite a useful question about how a candidate profile will be evaluated by the consortium for a scholarship. And so this is information that you can find, and I'm just going to double check, but I believe that this is on it's the MAGMA webpage under Erasmus Mundus scholarships, which gives you all the information around what the scholarship includes, how the allowance is paid, how to apply, and eligibility. And there's a section there which is titled 2024 Selection Criteria. And there you can see that the Erasmus Mundus scholarship assessment criteria are as follows. Academic merit, relevance, and level of academic qualifications makes up 45% of the grading of scholarship applications. A supporting personal statement makes up 30%. Quality of references is 10%. And other relevant experience, such as relevant research, professional, or experiences and interests, is 15%. So I don't expect you to either remember or try and frantically jot those percentages down. But again, this is all information that you can find on our webpage on the page regarding scholarships, where you can get all the information about scholarships in terms of the nature of them, what they cover, and how a scholarship application will be assessed. There's also a useful section there called 2024 Application and Selection Timeline, which will give you a clear indication of when each of the steps in your application process, when you can expect those to be completed. So that was one that I saw. And also, do you receive many students from Latin America? And yes, we have. I know, I'm afraid I don't have the exact numbers, but Latin America is an area that we have had a number of scholarship applications from, certainly last year, and I'm sure that there will be a similar number again this year as well. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, this is one that Amy, Ben, you might be able to answer. For eligible scholarship holders, is there a percentage of students being selected from different countries, or does it solely depend on things like the supporting docs and personal statement?
Yes, so that is a good question. Obviously, the supporting documentation is extremely important, but because we are funded by the European Commission, there are certain rules that we need to follow in terms of our distribution of the scholarships each year. So there is a 10% rule, so we can only allocate 10% of scholarships to a given nationality over the next 4 years. So, for example, if we have already allocated 2 scholarships to a certain country for this first intake, it means we only have 8 scholarships for that country left to allocate over the next 3 intakes. So there is a rule around where we can give scholarships, which country we can give scholarships to. But because this is only the second intake, we have obviously only given out 22 scholarships so far. So that should not affect this next intake. We have scholarships for every country available.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because that's really useful for applicants to know ahead of time as well. And again, I think that information about the spread of scholarships and how this relates to kind of rules that are not put in place by us, but which we follow. Again, that's all information that you can also access and get some more information about on the scholarships section of our webpage as well. Okay, we've got a question. Thank you for your answer on the size of the cohort. I have another question. Will the host university be providing assistance in finding housing during the mobility program? Now, I would say that is not the case. That we don't that we don't kind of source or kind of find housing for students specifically, but just as I mentioned earlier on, that we've got these kind of within the university, we have support in place for international students. Similar support could be sought out at the partner institutions as well. Is there anything else that you would want to say on that, Amy, in terms of accommodation or?
Yeah, I would just add that it is difficult. It is a concern of students as they rotate through the programme. It is a stressful part of the programme to get your accommodation set up. But we will try and help you as much as we can to make sure that you are set up with accommodation for every semester. Ahead of each semester, we will issue students a welcome pack for the upcoming mobility period, and that will include some accommodation information. And as Alan said, we don't set up the accommodation for you, but we will certainly signpost you to links to certain websites, or we will try and connect you with the current cohort. The nice thing about the Erasmus Mundus programme is we've got students who just went through the cycle, so we will be able to hopefully connect the current students with you, the new students, and they can give you tips and advice on how they found accommodation, where's best to look, what's the best area, what it's like to live in that particular city. So again, as I keep saying, do contact the MAGMa inbox if you are concerned about accommodation, if you're having issues and you're maybe it's getting close to the semester and you're a little bit worried, definitely get in touch with us and we'll do our best to help you. But through your mobility periods, it will be the host university who will be your best contact as they're physically in that city. And just to mention, related to accommodation, if you do decide to join the summer school at Glasgow, or if you decide to join the winter school in Mumbai, accommodation will be set up for you. That will all be arranged for you before you join.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I'd forgotten about the fact that, yes, of course, for the seasonal schools, accommodation is part of the package almost. Yeah, so that's something that will be arranged by us in advance. And a great point as well about the fact that beyond the support that students can receive from the University of Glasgow and from the partner institutions, the support from the cohort and from previous cohorts is really strong. We've got the Erasmus Mundus association. It's kind of a alumni and student association. Again, there's a link to that with more information from the main MAGMa webpage at the University of Glasgow, which is really useful if you are a current student on the programme. You can get a lot of help and kind of tips and advice from alumni. But there's also a section there for potential applicants to the programme, so you can kind of engage with and kind of talk to students who've gone through the experience of an Erasmus Mundus program, who know what it's like to move from city to city, country to country across the 2 years of study, and can give you some really useful practical advice on things like that, on kind of travel and accommodation in that local area as well. Okay, I see that we've got 5 minutes left, and yes, let's see if you've got do a quick blitz of any questions that are remaining. We've got a couple of questions here around. I think this question from Dong, I think we might have covered this in terms of bringing your spouse with you. I mentioned that Glasgow has this kind of international student support and international family network that might be a good first port of call as a University of Glasgow student to check in on the level of support that you can receive there. And besides scholarships, for self-funders, for example, are there other kind of sources of financial support, such as tuition fee waivers? So, Amy, is that something that you would want to mention, or I guess we can say that tuition fee waivers are something that we can look at and we can consider as well?
Yeah, it's certainly something that the consortium partners would consider. But I would also direct you to the University of Glasgow's scholarships website to have a look at other scholarships that are available if you aren't successful with the Erasmus Mundus scholarship. I would also say that if you have applied and you receive an offer, but you may want to, and you didn't receive the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, there could be the option to defer your entry to the following year, but you would have to then resubmit your scholarship application if you weren't successful in the first round. So there is the opportunity to reapply the following year. But we do have self-funded students on the programme this year, and they have managed to find other sources of external funding. So they're not funded through the Erasmus Mundus programme, but they've been able to find their own sources of funding. So it's absolutely possible, and I would strongly encourage you to exhaust all avenues if you're really interested in the programme and unfortunately you didn't receive the Erasmus Mundus scholarship. I will say that the 22 scholarships, it is a really difficult decision for the review committee to whittle it down to 22. We receive extremely high quality applications. And when we meet in March with the review committee, which is made up of academics from across all of the partner universities, it is an extremely difficult decision to come up with the 22 scholarships. So yeah, I would encourage you to do your research and to look at alternative funding options if you aren't able to join on a Erasmus scholarship.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a good point, Amy. It's a really difficult decision. We debate and deliberate for a very long time in advance of that scholarship selection meeting and at the meeting itself as well, just because the quality of applications that we receive is so high. So yeah, please do a lot of research. Please do a lot of homework when you're submitting your application. Make sure your application is as specific as possible and that it addresses all the points. On that note, I have noticed we've got a couple of questions about language and kind of IELTS and various scores and things like that. I think maybe, I know we've got a few different questions on this topic, but I think that the best thing might be is to just direct you to the application webpage, how to apply, eligibility criteria, and just double check everything that you have, the scores that you have, whether it's IELTS or whether it's another form of kind of language test or certification, against those kind of criteria that we have detailed on the website. And if you don't have all the documentation in place when you first make your application, it may be that you'll receive kind of follow-up contact from us asking you to kind of make sure that all that information is submitted and is correct. But I think that, yeah, rather than maybe kind of getting into the details of specific individuals and their individual language requirement tests, I think it might just be best if you are able to kind of direct that to the website, or if you can't find what you're looking for on the website, if you have a very specific case, please do then, that would be one where you would want to get in touch with us directly at magma@glasgow.ac.uk, and we'll be able to field those questions there in a wee bit more detail. Okay.
Alan, would you mind if I add to that very quickly? Just, I just want to clarify, IELTS is not the only examination we take, and I see a lot of these questions circulating around IELTS. We do require you to meet the language requirement, and if you do have a subscore that's too low, we will need you to do another test, but please go and look through the requirements and take a look at all the tests that are available, because there may be something that suits your situation better in terms of the delivery than IELTS does. So please take advantage of that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ben. That's a really good point. And I think we're at 2 p.m. now, so I think we'll probably have to stop there. I'm very sorry to anyone that we didn't get a chance to answer your question. Again, please do contact us with any specific questions that you have at MAGMA at glasgow.ac.uk. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Thank you, Ben and Amy, for joining me and giving us your questions. It's great to hear from you all. I really look forward to reading all of your application materials, and I wish you all the absolute best of luck. And with any luck, we'll see you in September in Lisbon, joining us on the next round of MAGMA in 2024. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.